No one else is here for the first time? Or anyone else? So what's your story?
I'm taking a religious studies class at London Community College, and I've never experienced this Zen practice. And
Okay. You as well? Okay. Okay. Right. It's a little foggy here. I can barely see because of the light is coming from the back. So, okay. Where the mountains meet. In the cool, fresh of the early morning, August, Eugene, Oregon, around 4 a.m., before the sun begins to rise, the heavens open into an invisible eye. Slowly from the east, at dawn, the edges melt, boundaries open and flow. Whoever you are, whatever you have, know that it is already a good. Light a candle, be still. Become the place where the mountains meet. Walking with bone bare foot mid-morning, 10 a.m., a short walk on Hayes Street. Traveling into, then traveling through, both in the world and the deep, intimate spaces below the ground, later, into the night in a dream, finding your way, stepping outside. It is a leaping over, a wading through, all day too, you keep on going, poking your head outside, not attached to the potential tangle of the mind, not attached to the potential tangle of the world, like a molten gold and white light flowing, not yet not complete, not stuck in judgment of this and that. The earth pulsing in our very heart, the inner light radiates with subtle, flexible clarity, how everywhere, everything is our promise. Incipit. You can enter the Avatamsaka realm right now. A simple example, your garden variety distraction. You notice the distraction, bringing your awareness back to listening to the Dharma talk. In the stepping back and the stepping forward, the distraction is positive as an impetus for returning to the present, as well as being rich, dark potential. The Avatamsaka is the realm of the ultimate, a pure land, spacious, free, and happy. Working through suffering grounds us and teaches, making our experience of joyfulness real. And I have relayed this before, how as a small child I saw these images as if held within a vision of a dark angel. And this vision sustains me now, like hooking your life to a star. And I didn't check the etymology, but the word desire actually is connected to the idea of a star. So I thought that was a good thing to know. Prajna is intelligence in the transformative process, opening to things just as they are. It is a matter of cleansing our perception. And we, you, are a participant and creative, new and renewed, contributing to the basic fabric of the world. Your inner process as a part of becoming things just as they are. Comparable to the great ocean, Vairocana. There is a great ocean dreaming, children of the Buddha in the remote past, as many aeons ago as atoms in a world, nay, even twice as long ago as that, there was an ocean of worlds called all-sided pure light. There is a great ocean dreaming. I speak to the influx of a bodhisattva imagination, a great conversation between all beings, and not just the human beings, but celestial kings, dragons, coral trees, and fragrant flowers, garudas, peacocks, frogs, the butterflies, millions, billions, and trillions of cities, as many as the atoms of worlds within worlds, of the mountains, of the jeweled forests, of the rivers. There is a great eye in the deep of the waters, in the blackest marrow amidst the ocean. I have a question for the Buddha, the great cosmic Buddha Vairocana, whose delicate light penetrates, overflowing this passage through the subtle interior labyrinth of the mind. How does the experience of the empty nature of the self, the empty nature of all dharmas, bring us back into the world? How does this foster seeds of compassion? One moment is the great ocean's dreaming. The first Buddha, supreme clouds, on the mountain of all virtues, in the 100 years before he is to appear in the world. All adornments in the great forest, a circle of the branches with jeweled flowers, become pure. And the term adornments, as is used in the Avatamsaka, refers to the phenomenal world, both as nature and the interior and social world of persons. We can think of the implication of pure and impure in Buddhist practice as referring to our tendency to become caught up in the world of things. So, pure and impure is not being a saint. There's no ideal of a good person, a perfect person in Buddhism. And also that it's okay to be with things, to love things. It's just when we are caught up in things. And our particular style of being caught up. Spacious and still, quiescent and simple, yet dynamic, a continual moving on. All things are the body of Vairocana, the Dharmadhatu of identity and interdependence, as nothing other than the body of the cosmic Buddha Vairocana. This is the seat of enlightening beings, Vairocana as omnipresent, one with the way of constant change. Our true nature as palpable and real, flexible and flowing, and what we practice with. And the Buddha is a very real presence in your life, your true nature. A great enlivening, vibrant peace, a mind gracious and bright, Vairocana, the open, fresh, impartial quality of a mind that remains fluid and available in difficult moments, not favoring pain or pleasure, not building a story around old memories, a mind that can see and permit what is new and possible. The Prince of Light, of great power, son of a king called benevolent mind, a joy to behold, having seen the Buddha's light due to the power of the roots of goodness, he had cultivated immediately, realized 10 kinds of teachings. He realizes great aspiration and great determination, and practices of the 4 immeasurables. The 4 immeasurables are the practice with loving kindness, equanimity, sympathetic joy, and compassion. And the roots of goodness is a phrase that comes up many times in the Avatamsaka, and it really is your practice, because it is your practice that helps you begin to hear the teaching and the words of the Buddha. Invisible to visible, the unexpected, at times uninvited kings, demons, dragons, ghosts, and guests. There was the celestial king of good influence from the city, beautiful flowers. There was the dragon king, pure light, from the city of ultimate greatness. There was the yaksha king, fierce strength, from the city, supreme diamond banner. There was the Gandharva king, gladdening sight, from the city undefiled. A Titan king, contemplation of pure form, from the city of beautiful sphere. There was the Garuda king, exercise of 10 powers, from the city, exquisite array. There was a Kanara king, indestructible qualities, from the city, playful enjoyment. There was the Maharaga king, banner of noble repute, from the city of diamond banner. There was the Brahma king, supreme, from the city of pure adornments. And each city and king avowed a retinue of an inconceivable great number, like 1,000,000 billion trillion. And the sheer number of kings and cities was also avowed an inconceivable great number, like 1,000,000 billion trillion. But all went together to the Buddha supreme cloud on the mountain of all virtues and prostrated themselves at his feet and sat to one side. And these are all different qualities. Each king is very different, and the city is very unique and different. And each of these great kings and their retinues from cities was able to sit at the Buddha and hear the teachings. So I started a practice at Dharma Rain early summer, 1997. Coming to the Northwest from Austin, Texas. And I'm actually originally from New York, but I went to graduate school in Austin, Texas, with the aim of finding a Zen center. And I picked Portland, Oregon, because of the rain and the trees. And I am originally from New York City and yet chose not to return. In part because my most influential teacher, an older African-American man, expressed concern that New York was a difficult place to get started as an artist. For 3 years prior to coming to Portland, I was living and teaching in Austin, Texas. There were trees in Austin, beautiful live oaks, but it was mostly hot, dry, and very prickly with cactus, red ants, scorpion, and armadillo, not to mention June bugs. These very large roaches, actually, And I previously spoke in regard to growing up in difficult family circumstance, coming to Zen practice with significant karmic issues. And Kyogen, my root teacher, was most patient. I do not believe there are many people who would have taken this time with me. But in all fairness, I also took the time and committed to the long haul. There was no question, as I experienced this practice as essential to my life. There are Buddhist teachers who say the practice itself will take care of our karmic tendencies, and for some this may be so. But I did not find this to be true in my own case. And from the very beginning of Zen practice and years prior, I found the need and still find the need to be especially attentive, not only to insight into emptiness, but also insight into my own psychology. And I am glad this has slowed me down, has kept me mindful and attentive of the varied texture of my inner terrain, holding me close to my own internal dream and landscape. I think we miss something essential in the practice when we attempt to pass through the region of the psyche too quickly or not at all, not giving proper respect and attention to the beings and moods that inhabit this interior realm. Invisibles, the visible, the unexpected, at times uninvited guests who arrive, as pleasant and or unpleasant, reminiscent of a thick and, for me, hot breath of my earlier days, the negative, sorrow, fear, and doubt as a landscape of our ancestry, the ghosts and the guests of the yin element, the wave receding into the ocean. In the alaya of the mind-only teaching of the Yogacara, portrayed as the individual stratum beneath consciousness, a seedbed embracing the psyche, a seething, hot and or cold, cradle of seeds and tangles, a colorful matrix and of depth and light, of the roots of the ancients, of family, of remote ancestry, embedded in the red-black clay memory of earth. As a reservoir of karmic forces, alaya operates like a container of positive and negative predispositions. And we are born with predispositions. We carry these seeds lodged deep in the marrow of our bones, in our body. Alaya is likened to reflections in a mirror. In the Huayan, an image of an infinitely repeated mirroring, an aspect of our being originally functioning unawares and unconsciously. And making these seeds conscious is really what we look to do in practice. And it is in working with these seeds that you begin to come from this meditative awareness or your practice awareness to the deeper awareness of the ultimate or pristine awareness, Prajna Paramita. Personally, I love this. You know, how a word, a color, a gesture, feeling, or interior image can open into worlds, become whole landscapes creating worlds, to touch and to ground, reimagining and thickening the significance of our personal experience. An image symbol such as Alaya has the capacity to suggest many different shifting perspectives. And that's the idea that there's no center. The Huayan shows you, you know, a universe that is continually in changing, and that there is no center, there's no place, I mean, that, you know, no central reference point, but just these endless shifting and simultaneous perspectives. Symbols do not merely describe or stand in for something else. But what else would there be to stand in for? Symbols are replete yet open-ended, meaningful thresholds which partake of both light and dark elements in the psyche. It is of significance that the patriarchs of the Huayan school created a compendium of many older Mahayana Buddhist scriptures. And this is its identity of one vehicle, its common aspect. The most prevalent scriptures were the Prajnaparamita, that's the Heart Sutra, the Yogacara, Mind Only, Nagarjuna, the Madhyamaka, the 10 stages of the Bodhisattva, the Lankavatra Sutra, and the Diamond Sutra, which is also a Prajnaparamita Sutra, and the Awakening of Faith. Commentators searched for common threads, because Buddhism is held together through its core teachings on emptiness. And the Huayan patriarchs and the Avatamsaka is the original Indian sutra of the 2nd century, kind of the same time as the Lotus Sutra. It arrived in China, was one of the first sutras that was introduced into China, was translated, and then there were patriarchs, a group of them, and they liked the Avatamsaka and began to write commentaries. And this became the Huayan school, which is very important, became very important to Zen practice. Commentators searched for common threads. Because Buddhism is held together through its core teachings on emptiness, each sutra found its place as a complement to other teachings or an aspect of its total development. What is significant of the Huayan is that everything finds its place. I mean, and that's, you know, part of its teaching. It's embedded and integrated in the teaching and is pertinent to your own life and your own being in any community, that everything finds its place. It is noteworthy, too, that the unique flavor of the Huayan, which established it as an independent and influential school of Buddhism, is the specific sensibility of the Chinese character. It is the positive nature of the Chinese, which speaks to a creative alchemy of transformation, the perfection of beings expressed through the Bodhisattva vow. And this is its identity as the one vehicle in its unique aspect. So the compendium of many different sutras used and put together by the patriarchs, you know, that's its common aspect, its collective value, and then, you know, the specifics of the Chinese character, which really, what's interesting is that it really changed and brought a very individual and innovative quality to the sutra. The Chinese had a very different character than the Indian, and the Indian emptiness is kind of more distressing to think of than interpenetration. And the Chinese, because they were more positive and they were more into daily life in terms of work rather than elite kings and the Buddha with the top knot. The Chinese were more plain, working in the rice fields. And so that quality that they brought to the sutra, made it original. And that's kind of important. I think it says something about your individual life and the contribution that you can make in your individual character. So it's interesting, the difference between Indian culture and the Indian expression and the Chinese expression. It is noteworthy, too, that the unique flavor, I did that already. All right, so, okay. Vairocana, the cosmic Buddha, the light in all beings, whose radiance awakens those who express a readiness through the cultivation of the roots of goodness or wholehearted and continued inquiry through various meditation, mindfulness, and precept practices in relation to alaya, the watering of good seeds, thus ending all feverish confusion, sundering the web of obstruction, smashing the mountains of barriers, clearing away all pollution, developing great faith and resolution, producing excellent roots of goodness, able to hold fear and the various difficulties, annihilating the misery of mind and body, conceiving the will to see the Buddha, and head toward omniscience. And Vairocana is the wild, wonderful, colorful, a god of nowhere and no thing, an expression of non-abiding, how we come into true alignment, biting through the all too familiar, and for me, negative judgments, the spin-off which in itself engenders self-doubt, disappointment, and regret. It sets up false expectations, and despite its painful negative aspect, we usually will not let this go until all feels lost. The Avatamsaka is written from a space of the transcendent, spoken through the light of Prajna. The Avatamsaka is written in the language of the immanent, this moment, everything, just as it is. In the story in Book 6 of Vairocana, the cosmic Buddha, who is himself in the process of becoming, the Prince of Light of great power, is learning through the practices of the ancient Buddhas. The learning of the cosmic Buddha is an expression of continual change, the expression of continual change is the quality of our cosmos, this empty field of the Dharma Dhatu. What we call the void is infinite, open, the bright face of vital expression of and in all things. What we term result happens in context through our learning the many ways, the many faces of what our life is trying to be. This person I call myself a continually changing field, which grows simple yet more subtle with age. The practice calls for perseverance and honesty, creating an adequate distance to enable us to see through persistent habit energies, like the husk of a seed dissolving, allowing a new plant to emerge, a continual loosening of who we believe ourselves to be, questioning even what we term our integrity. Again and again, traveling as a stranger in a strange land, permitting life and relationships to change. This brings compassion, acknowledging how difficult a life can be, acknowledging how difficult it is to recognize and accept the need for radical transfiguration, how difficult it is even after many years of practice to gather courage and follow through. And yet we can take heart as the old worn-out quality of habit provides reason for and freshness of a new way of being. The habit itself affords a powerful impetus for insight, to be caught up in our troubles and or turning towards to meet our troubles is all of a piece and both at once. So at one point, the Buddha emitted a great light beam from between his brows. The light beam was called producing the seeds, the sounds of all roots of goodness, and was accompanied by as many light rays as atoms in 10 Buddha fields. There is an ocean of great virtues. There is a light attained through an ocean of the teachings collected in former ages by Buddha Supreme Cloud on the mountain of all virtues. There are small hints of joy flowing through the great arc as worlds turn about to meet us. And the awakening of faith in the Mahayana, as a result of the winds of ignorance, mind, which is intrinsically pure, becomes agitated and form waves. In the perfection of wisdom in 8,000 lines, the Tathagata is not attached to anything because his mind does not seek to rest on anything. He is not attached to the created and he is not attached to the uncreated. And Li Wen Hui, our mind originally does not dwell anywhere. All things are produced by the mind. To realize one's true nature is not to be attached to anything. The mind not attached to anything is prajna. Prajna paramita, the unfathomable abyss, is a very real interior presence. In meditation, we quiet the discriminative mind, touching the space beneath our thoughts. Prajna paramita wicks away residual distortion, fear, worry, and ill will. She is the magic of innate intelligence, brightness, and clarity, empowering us with confidence, freshness, and a flexible stability. Saying no to a karmic pattern is a choice. It can be a very difficult and confusing choice. At an impasse, it is good to ask, what is it that is needed? How does emptiness function at the heart of things? Regarding empathy, how does renunciation function in our depth to express genuine acts of compassion? And the Buddha Supreme Clouds on the mountain of all virtues spoke these words to enlightening being, light of great power. Excellent, magnificent light, mine of blessings of wide renown, for the purpose of aiding all beings, you set forth on the road to enlightenment. And this is a little prose poem for a change of pace. I did a little different, and it's stories no one taught me. Around 8 years ago, I had a dream about my teacher, then spiritual friend Kyogen Carson. In our relationship as disciple and teacher, we were very close. I lived and practiced in the Dharma House on Madison Street, and then close by the new property on Siskiyou in Portland. I was a resident at Dharma Rain for close to 8 years, and one night I dreamt I was to accompany him on a walk, my teacher. He came to me in a dream asking for a time to meet. Later that evening, we slowly walked a winding, gently ascending, a wilderness path together toward the north. At some point I left, and he continued that journey alone. Not long after, my teacher and spiritual friend died. I find it interesting that he asked me to accompany him, and at the time of the dream, no one, not even Kyogen, knew that he was ill. Of the dream-like imaginal character of the archetype, the coming to life of a Jizo bodhisattva, a friend to women, children, and travelers. There is a ritual celebration of Jizo bodhisattva in the forest garden at Great Vow for mothers of children who have died. Of the Greek god Dionysus, sensual, wild, emotive. Of the night, the animal, also a friend to the feminine. He is not a literal presence, and yet we are all guests in his household, all beings of thresholds, of the fragile and tenuous edge of new thresholds. He is a friend of the Orient, pointing us due north toward the realm of light. Prajna Paramita is a being of thresholds. She is the one who blesses the borderlands, helping all beings to cross over. Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi Svaha. And the north actually is, that is the realm of death. It's winter, it's the realm of death, and it's the realm of deep darkness. And it also is the coming forth of new light. So, okay, and that's my talk for today. Thank you. Any questions? And, I think I personally think that if people who don't usually ask questions, give them a chance first. So is anybody who is not a usual question person would like to ask something? No? Okay. Go ahead.
I just wanted to, I noticed that you had an image on the front of your talk and you flipped it.
Oh, yeah. And you know, I really don't know. It is a Vairocana image and I liked it. You know, it's not an ocean actually at all, but.
I just was curious if, I know you as an artist,
No, I had no time. I had the idea in my mind. I wanted to. I said, no, Allison, don't think that way. Just take care of what you're doing. So all of my pictures are
a woman after my own heart.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Otherwise, it's trouble.
Get distracted.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. I just was.
Anyone else? This is your chance. So.
What role do you think that imperfection has in the path?
In the path, I think it's actually, I have placed it in, I have added it to the Trinity as the fourth quality, instead of three, the four. It's usually not mentioned, so that should tell us something. And I think it is actually, what initiates. I've practiced, my own practice has been based in where I was least capable and not where I was most capable. I sometimes refer to it as the fourth wheel, that part of us that just won't give. And in many serious and treacherous ways. So I really think it is the mainstay and richness of your life, and something that is worthy of attention, and as difficult as it can be, and also, what spurs the practice? I mean, without difficulty, we would really have no reason to come and practice and to be present at all. So that's in a nutshell. Anyone else?
Can you say more about working with the psyche?
Yeah, it's again, these difficult moments, and sometimes, they can be very positive or very negative, but these difficult moments, and, I have made the, where our stucknesses or our difficulties is really the, what you can follow as your path, and continually working with through practice, through, if you're in psychotherapy or if you like psychology, through reading, through study, I have used my most difficult places as my guide for moving through the path. And I find it very kind of peaceful, that I can trust that. I can trust what isn't working to some degree as where I need to work and where I need to listen, focus. I've had plenty of practice, really. So.
Thank you.
Where does delusion lie on the path?
Say that again.
Where do you think delusion lies on the path?
It's again, it's the same thing. And not to say that positives aren't important. Positives are important too, but positives can cause the same kinds of problems because when things go well, we don't want to let them go and we don't want to accept change. So either extreme, you're positive or you're negative. And delusion is part of the, it's a misperception. A lot of times it's taking what's impermanent as permanent. It's seeing myself as isolated when I really am connected, and it's not a bad thing, eventually through the practice, you learn to accept that it's a natural part of human growth, that delusion is a natural aspect of the process of being a person, of growing, of being alive. So, but definitely, Kyogen always said human beings need to practice. So it's just really you're connecting yourself to a deeper, more productive way of being with your life. Not as easy, as success or whatever worldly ideas offer you, be your dream or whatever. And those are okay things too. But I really think that how you connect with practice and whatever way that you do, just helps you to live your life in a more significant and real way. So
you talked about going throughout like the world or like throughout your day without getting attached to like things outside of you or in your mind. What kind of things do you do to facilitate that?
You mean getting attached? Getting attached is really very easy. And on a regular basis, as you practice longer and longer, you're aware of your particular places of attachment, and it's less and less the attachments. Thoughts will still come up, but your sense of becoming attached is much less because you've worked with all of the possibilities within your own psyche or your own life. Things that I do, what kind of things? Depends, I do a lot of meditation. I have spent a lot of time in meditation. I was really lucky that it was urgent, to be a meditator. So I would really, I could tell you a lot of things of the magic of meditation and over the years of the long term, how it helps. I did a lot of study, and not just study of Buddhist traditions, but study of things that were of particular interest to me. Resonances that Abbot Ejo mentioned the other day, letting things, kind of speak to you and tell you that, I might be of interest. So I've done a lot of that too. I do a lot of analytical work, too. I have places in me that really just have been twisted and complex. And so, I kind of cast out and let the delusion or the attachment play itself out some so that I can see it and get to know it. It's not about getting rid of it. You really want to get to know it kind of like a good friend. High habit energy, okay? So, you really want to get to know it and get to know it well. And I can say that that's another really important thing to do because one day, it will, dissolve and things that have been your whole life, impossible, really will eventually dissolve and just become kind of part of the, your daily fare. So, and I don't know what I paint, actually, I don't want to leave that out. I paint, is a big thing that I do, really a saving grace for my particular life. And, I come here, I talk to a teacher, these are all things. I have all of these tools that I have developed. And so, it becomes simple, that it just comes up and I know where to go even. And it's not that troublesome anymore, but still, things will come up that just won't let go. And, I'm really become good at knowing what to do or trusting, in silence or, that something will come up that brings me back down to earth. So things as they are, you know. So anyone else?
Shin-ei,
Yeah, no, you.
um,
I know your name, so Jacqueline. I got it. You know.
you had mentioned that we bring our character, you emphasized that we bring our character to the sutra in the way that the Chinese brought a certain character to the sutra, and it changed. And but the way you talked about it, it was. I'm curious if you could speak more about what does it mean to bring our character to a sutra, and how does that what is that relationship like? I mean, I grew up in a religious tradition that was very much the sacred text is the word and doesn't change, or that was very emphasized in my mind. So I'm curious if you could speak more about.
Yeah, you know, in traditional cultures, it's a very different animal than in our contemporary culture. And most of us have gone very deeply into individual development. So I think this is a very particular problem that we have of respecting this deep individual sense of who we are and permitting that to, our own preferences in a sense. So, in my painting, what is it that I need to see? What is it that makes a painting process very real for me? That it's part of who I am, and yet not in a selfish and self-serving way. So it's not in an isolated way, and you kind of have to feel your way with it. It's very much my vision with things, my way of living, and yet I'm still connected to everything around. I'm not locking myself up in a cave somewhere and insisting, on a particular view that could be off the wall. I'm very connected, and the practice really helped, bring you out of sense of separation, feelings of isolation that are really easy, no matter how long you practice. It's really easy. You really have to keep looking and looking at your own situation, looking at your own, your own issues and your own life, continually. But I don't know if this works, but I recently got a little more involved in traditional art, and I found an Islamic woman that was teaching it. And something that I noticed was that who she was, I got to know her through a class, who she was seemed to be really essential to the paintings that she was making. Like it really made a difference, her person. And, because Islamic art is notably an art where a dragon is a dragon, and you don't get your own personal dragon, okay, like we get. So, but I really saw through her that who she is as a person, really made the difference in her dragon. So that strengthened the sense of being individual, and bringing individual qualities and into art, into things we do. And the interpersonal struggle, which is, I think, so important today for us as, those of us who have developed into individuals, and that isn't the same in traditional cultures, where the tradition carries you and, all the choices are given in a sense. So it's a very different animal than what we face today. And so balancing, always balancing, the collective and the needs of the group with my own needs. So I guess, does that answer your question?
We'll
So,
talk more.
okay. Anyone else? And I have to keep track of time. We have one more. Okay, one more. Well, all right, two more.
Do you think it's possible to be attached to the breath?
To the
Breath?
to the breath. You don't want to be attached to the breath, but you can love the breath, and you can let the breath love you. Attached, is a funny word, and words can, there's so much room, but attached to it would maybe make things uncomfortable and feeling wrong, whereas love and connection to the breath And because I personally really love the breath, it just allows the breath to move freely through, gives it room, and it gives you room, and gives it room to do its thing, and help you. And, last one.
I was just wondering if you could talk more about that finding that balance between that non-attachment space and then that analysis of your attachments or those twisted parts. How you find that balance between going too deeply in or not going into reflective enough. Just, I don't know. Do you understand?
Yeah, I really do. Again, the present moves very, very quickly. It is really hard. There are no edges. That's part of the Avatamsaka, that there are no lines, no edges anywhere. So in a way, it's a matter of degree. And you'll know, I really pay attention to, I know I am attached right now. I am, in a wrong place. And, and then I just watch it. And then at a significant time, things will begin to turn around. And in the turning around, at some later point, I can make some understanding. And it's hard to explain, but it kind of does its own thing. It will leave of its own accord, if you don't bother things, but we usually don't do that. We, are determined to get this, and it's that makes this spin-off. It's the spin-off that is the issue. If something just comes up, and you just kind of keep going, it will dissipate on its own. But when why of, something happening, causes a problem for me. I've isolated it down, myself into like a particular thing that happens, and breaking it down into, giving it a name and all kinds of things. So you can do it however you want. Not everyone has to do that. But you begin to really notice your own patterns, where, why when someone says this, I always do that. Why, when this particular thing happens, there's always a, some kind of issue or problem afterwards. And so you keep following and following and following. It's 26 years now, you know what I mean? So, and eventually, you will really get to know it, and it can be in pretty clear detail, and, it just kind of disappears. It's probably not very real to begin with, even though it can feel very real to you. So, is that okay? Okay, so 11:36, we are done. So,